and Judith, we are both going to present together. So earlier we talked about the Digital Health Research Center, which has existed for the last 5 years. Unfortunately, it's at the stage of a bit shaky stage because we don't have funding. However, what we're going to talk today is about how we've involved users in our living lab. Basically, our users are people with cognitive disabilities, and Judith will be presenting people with TBI. So when we're designing artifacts with the cohort that we are working with, they have memory problems, problems with problem solving, attention. Some of our users have difficulty in understanding linguistic, verbal comprehension, as well as visual comprehension. So if you're doing co-design with this, go back to the previous.
I'm trying to. You can join you.
Okay. So if you're doing co-design, if you just go in and do one workshop, you won't come back with enough information. So you really have to do a kind of study where you're doing a pilot, where you're working together, where you actually give the product and let the people experiment with the product. So that's where we are coming from. So we've basically, within the center, we've used all these 5 principles of living lab. So these are the core principles that we are trying to embed in every part of our project. So with co-creation, you will see this in the Living Lab handbook. So we've taken this and we've mapped this into our various projects. So Flinders Assistant for Memory Enhancement, this is the platform that we created as part of the Digital Health Research Center, which is basically, it delivers brain training and physical activity intervention for people with mild cognitive impairment. So we created the entire platform from ideation to implementation to prototype and everything within it, using or with the people experiencing mild cognitive impairment. The outcome of the product, at the moment we finished the 2 pilot, and right now it's being tested as at Flinders Medical Center. I won't go into detail because at the last conference I've gone into detail into these products. So I'll give the opportunity to Judith to talk about the other product, but I'm quite happy to talk about these products specifically, how we've engaged at the various settings at a different time, if you'd like to find out more information. So then the other project currently that I'm doing is to evaluate a website or a hub that is being created by an external party, but I've been brought in to evaluate with people with Parkinson, young onset Parkinson. So basically, again, this is a collaboration where we are actually we're working together with people with young onset Parkinson in not just evaluating, but also contributing. So I'm going in as an external party into this collaboration. So we are getting funded by Parkinson SA to collect all the information from these individuals and give it back to the software development company who's developing the software and bringing it back to us as a prototype. Then Parkinson SA is actually recruiting the participants from this cohort. They are all around Australia. Unfortunately, when COVID struck, we couldn't bring them together. However, we found quite a good innovative way to engage. So we've done the entire evaluation using Zoom. And we're just moving forward with that a number of times. So we're going to do the 3rd iteration of the evaluation with, again, all these people are around Australia. And each time I do the engagement, James actually put together the usability scenarios, and then I run the evaluation. Very good feedback from the end users. It goes back to the developers do their bit and comes back to us. So it's quite an iterative process. It just shows that it's not, what I like to highlight is that it's not just, I mean, focus group and co-design and co-creation. Sometimes in health, you do it once. But the thing is that when you're working with people with dementia or people with some kind of cognitive disabilities, they can't even perceive what you're talking about. So if I went there and I said, okay, I like to I like to create this app, and this app is supposed to teach you or help you with doing brain training or physical activity using this app. I mean, they can't even imagine how that's going to look like. So what we're trying to do is that how do we overcome that barrier and bring people in right from the ideation stage where they can be involved and giving them some kind of things that they can touch, feel, and then we create the experiment as well. So with the FAME project, after the ideation, creation, prototype, which was involving all the participants, we did 2 pilots. The 2 pilots obviously engaged the participants at the level of usage, and then the data informed the next pilot, and so on and so on. So basically, the way that we are using the methodology, because we are basically creating IT artifact. It follows the software development life cycle. So within the software development life cycle, that iterative process is already there. It is something that you plan, and even the planning is iterative, and we're just translating that into the care ecosystem, where at each level of the development, we're going back iteratively to the end users or to the stakeholders, coming back and improving the system as we go along. So then at the end, you receive more engagement from the end users, which is what we want. And also you'd like to have that software, whatever you're developing, to have an uptake amongst the people that you're developing it for. So again, here, because earlier I mentioned that we are using the methodology as our core principle within the lab, we basically mapped, these are the only 3 projects, but there's few other projects that we've mapped. So each of the core principle within Living Lab, and these are the projects that we have done and what are the elements of co-creation we've embedded in each of the projects. I won't go through in detail, but I can talk about this at a later stage.
Okay.
Again, we have a table like this, which we use at the very start of the planning. At the top, you can see is all the main milestone in software development or IT artifact creation, and then on the side are the different stakeholders. And at the start of that project, you go through with your clinical team, your CI team, and identify who are the stakeholders you'd like to engage and at what point you'd like to engage, and we go through that process as we go through different milestones. So this is, I think that's one more, yeah. So again, I'd just like to show that the Living Lab we are trying to do at the Digital Health Research Center is very much methodology focused, but the methodology itself, the core element of it is engaging people. So we've engaged a variety of people in all the projects. Specifically with FAME, they were all community dwelling. So the recruitment was outside of the university. We've engaged with the local council who brought in people for usability testing. We've engaged with, for example, Southern Cross Care and Dementia Australia. All these are stakeholders, but they bring not just their expertise, but they bring the citizens around to contribute from the ideation to the development, prototype, and evaluation.
Wow. Right.
So I hand over to Judith.
Okay, great. Yeah, and we're going to collectively take any comments or questions at the end, just so that you know.
Yeah.
All right, so you'll notice when I'm talking about this particular project you will see some parallels with what Lou was just saying, particularly because we're both interested in how do people with a particular challenge about their brain health or something to do with their cognition, how can we effectively engage them and the stakeholders relevant to their well-being and the goals we're trying to achieve? How do we really holistically engage all these people? Right. So just a very quick overview about brain injury rehabilitation. For this particular project, I'm working with a focus on adults who have suffered a traumatic brain injury, including people with mild TBI. To really remember that the brain continues to change and develops new learning pathways right through the lifespan. And so this is way beyond the usual provision of rehabilitation care, which is very time limited, and that's obviously cost limited. So looking for leverage that, research going on in different domains about how can we leverage care, how can we extend that sort of therapeutic input for people, and obviously digital health applications is one really important avenue. A key factor also in recovery is motivation. So this has been demonstrated on functional MRI scans of the brain and just more observational studies, clinical studies, that when the person is more motivated in their rehab, they actually recover better, they're more engaged in their therapy. Now, what is it about rehab though? What is it about, really garnering motivation? Well, it's actually about goal setting, pursuing those goals, achieving those goals. And how's all that done? That's actually done through conversation between two humans, clinician and client. And it's this aspect I'd like you to think about, because the tool that we're actually developing is called an embodied conversational agent, or what's commonly termed a chatbot. And that's all based on conversation. So you might have used a chatbot, let's say in your banking or planning your holiday. You might have used it on your mobile phone. You might have been booking your plane fares on your laptop maybe 2 years ago and talked to some automated chatbot. And you might have had very varied experiences, both negative, neutral, and hopefully positive. But there's a lot out there. So what is it about rehab chat that's hopefully different? This is the prototype visual of what the interface will look like, and for lots of reasons, the visual of the human-like character is separate to the text, so it's easy to sort of scan and look at. There's text bubbles for when the humanoid character is talking or when the person's responded. And at present, we're just having it that the avatar is able to speak, and then the text will show what she said, and then the human user will type in a response. There is a very new option of voice activated or voice to text, but that's another. From a design point of view, that carries a lot of extra consideration, so we're not jumping into that space yet. So why on earth use a chatbot? I'll use the word chatbot, it's probably more friendly than ECA. So like I mentioned, the idea is that it can leverage or extend usual care using those conversations, that goal-setting paradigm in a tool that the person can access at home and wherever they're managing their home rehab program, etc. It's just that high accessibility. As well, though, you can actually literally, you can plug in the client's choices, their words, their goals, their self-feedback about how they're going, their identification of needs. We've also been fortunate, and it's been quite strategic, that we've actually got use of the chatbot software for free from an Adelaide-based company, Clevertar. So that's, we talk about money, well, sometimes you can just have collaboration, that's just excellent. And their chief technical officer actually provides me with technical advice, not design advice, but technical advice, again for free. So that's great. I only probably use up about 5-10 minutes of his time a month, so it's not too much of an overhead for it. But it's just been excellent to have the software. So therefore the software is there, isn't it? We haven't designed the software, we're now using existing software, and what we look at is what's the content of the conversations and the logic and decision making that goes behind, all those different directions the conversation could go, and how is it going to be used in the clinical setting. So that's the bit that the Living Lab application is about. All right. Oh, actually, just go back one. And where does it all happen? That's just a visual of where I spend hours and hours of time plugging in different bits of information and logic and things like that. It's the design portal. Thank you. All right. So I was really excited. Like I had all this sort of going on in my PhD, and then my Anthony Mader, who some of you know, he's retired as adjunct for our centre and the uni, and also for this project, still supervising at a distance. But he introduced me to Lua and talked about Living Lab because I was very passionate about hearing the voice of the clients. And so from there, Lua coached me around Living Lab, and I did my own reading and was very comfortable in choosing it because it's so consultative, and those 5 key tenets have been shown to be the most comprehensive innovation design model compared to other models. So it's a very explicit, structured approach to co-design. And it has been used with and for adults with TBI when for the design of a smart apartment. I thought, well, there you go, there's some tick-ticks. For me, though, it's that real coal-face consideration, though, like Lewis already touched on. These people with TBI, even with mild TBI, have complex needs relating to, can be pain, just headaches, neck ache, fatigue, cognitive fatigue that can just hit them out of the blue, executive planning and problem solving. So even though they might be functioning fairly well on the mundane, these other things become challenging. Need to address that in the design of how we engage in a Living Lab approach. Not quite. Oh, that was me just gesticulating. So we also very comfortable about Living Lab because we're really wanting to ensure or optimise that the clinics will actually adopt the product that they're co-developing. And it's really important, like again, what Lewis said, we need this iterative approach to consulting with their end users, so clients, also the clinicians, but particularly the clients because they need time to think, reflect and respond, and they need repeated opportunity to do that. So that's very important. Thank you. Alrighty, so who are the stakeholders? So we have a public stakeholder, so we're working with the statewide service of the Australian Brain Injury Rehab Services, I'll now call them SABs, and working with 2 of their 4 ambulatory care clinics, so just 2 of them. The private enterprise is Clevertar. Now, they've got limited, they're not a true at the table player because they're not designing the content and mode of use. They're almost the background scaffolding of what's making it possible. So not a true engaged partner, but a very committed partner. Knowledge is frankly us, and particularly that I've got these great supervisors that help me, and those supervisors have expertise in multidisciplinary areas of computer science, digital health, and living laboratory. The end users, like I said, is that dyad, the client and the clinician of both clinics. So how have we consulted with these people? So at SA Burrs, we're working with their senior research coordinator. She's sort of the go-to person for just checking in. How do we make sure that this is going to integrate well into the real life setting? And then the clinicians and clients we're recruiting. I've already mentioned Clevertar and their support that they've offered with the advice and software, the university, and we're from 2 colleges. Our research centre really pulls in from the nursing health sciences and computer science and engineering, and then clients and clinicians. Co-creation has been, like probably for all of you, a long journey. I started informal discussions with the research coordinator of SA Burrs at the beginning of 2019, and then had formal stakeholder meetings at the middle and end of 2019 with clinical and senior staff to discuss the project and get their nods. And I wasn't talking them into nodding and agreeing, but just to get their perspective, and they said, yes, go for it. So that meant that they were committed in being the site or the real life setting that we could work with. I continue to meet with the research coordinator about quarterly, but have informal emails and little chats on the side, just when we bump into each other. I ask Clevertar questions when I need. We've already done alpha and beta testing of the initial prototype in-house using academic participants who were instructed to consider the perspective of brain injury rehabilitation, and the people that were involved had an understanding already. And then it's really in the co-creation workshops, there'll be a series of 4 that will involve the clients and clinicians themselves. We've got ethics approval to recruit for that, currently recruiting. And then we're going to move after that with the final prototype that's sort of developed from there. We'll put that into a feasibility pilot trial, so not an effectiveness one, but a feasibility pilot trial, recruiting client clinician dyad. So really actually using it in the real world. So where have I got this far? I did a very broad, unstructured literature review about rehab, goal setting, motivational interviewing, and self-determination theory are the theoretical paradigms undergirding the conversations here. Now doing a formal scoping review on the use of chatbots in brain injury and related conditions, develop the prototype, and now we're about to, hopefully by the end of March, we would have started 4 rounds of the workshops, all by Zoom, keeping the clients and clinicians apart for the first 3 rounds because of the inherent power differences there, and only bringing them together for the 4th meeting because by then I'm presuming they'll all be empowered and feeling really valuable. And then, like I said, we'll go on to the real trial. And really just want to emphasise that active user engagement. Started with those informal and then formal stakeholder meetings, bringing in the real end users for actual formal appraisal, qualitative review, and then qualitative, quantitative mixed methods pilot trial. And then all along the way, we hit a barrier, we chat with the research coordinator and clinicians to do things like how are we going to optimise screening or recruitment, it's slowing down, how many can we really reasonably can we recruit because this is a difficult cohort to recruit from, and how are we going to make it that this trial feels meaningful at your clinics. We're going to be in the clinic, in the home, the person will take the device home, and that's it. So we're really just keeping it real, keeping it client-centred.